Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Byard from GAI Insights, and welcome to another daily GenAI executive briefing, where we discuss and rate top news items. Our team of AI analysts rate each article essential, important, or optional, and our target reader is the executive interested in AI at a medium to large company. And let's start. And I think the first article up is, I'll get the display here in a second, is Google launches Gemini, an AI model that hopes will take down GPT-4, and there was 5 million text messages on this last night. So is this important or not?
Essential.
Essential.
Yeah, it's got to be essential. It's an announcement, and there is already functionality in Bard that you can try out. The rest of it is coming a little bit later and a little more slowly. So we'll see. But this is their response to OpenAI's ChatGPT-4, really.
So obviously essential, and a lot more news to come, I imagine, as people start actually using it.
Absolutely. And also the nano models is kind of an interesting challenge to Apple, I think, there.
And I think just it feels, Julio, they really made a big point of being architected from ground up for multimodal. Is that one of the uniquenesses you agreed with, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how well that actually works. But right now, GPT-4 needs to take a prompt. If you ask it to generate an image, it takes your text and generates the prompt, and then hands it off to DALL-E to generate the image, and then gives it back to you. Here, these models seem to be much more integrated. They generate the image directly, which means that their responses also seem to be able to have, or will be able to have, images and text kind of interleaved in the response itself, and that's really interesting also. So yes.
Yeah, I think from a design perspective, a lot of people don't appreciate that everything is going to be a two-way street. You're going to be able to show the models, material as input. That's going to come back in whatever modality. So it's a real rethink from the ground up of, multimodal input, output, and then we're going to get to networks of people doing it. So it's a completely different interface paradigm.
John, FYI, your microphone again's coming in and out.
I think you've got a little lean forward a little bit.
Will do. Thank you.
That was essential. The next one is a Liquid AI spinoff out of MIT, about a whole new way to train and develop models.
So I would personally rate this important, and I'm willing to argue about it. But I think the reason it's important is because we've been saying for some time it's really early days, and this to me is a big indicator of that. We don't know how this new type of model is going to work, but the results are pretty impressive. It's coming out of MIT, and this could be an order of magnitude difference in performance and capability. Maybe 2 or 3 orders of magnitude even, in terms of the size of the model and the capability of the model. It also does things completely differently. This is not a transformer model. This is a time series based model. And so the question is, how will this actually work out in production? But the early results are really interesting, particularly for time series data, financial transactions, weather patterns, navigation. So big markets.
I would argue, actually, Tim, I'm certainly agree with important, but I would argue essential, because there is a whole bunch of applications, as you pointed out, where the time series is critically important. Sort of managing.
I think essential. I was talking myself down to important because it's just a launch of a commercial company from a research lab at MIT, so it's a long ways from.
Right, it is an indication that this is there's something out there that can take unique time sequenced environments that regular AI having difficulty doing.
So let me ask about optional. So from a, I know it's promising, but it's not shipped yet. And from an executive standpoint, Tim or others, would this affect how some of the companies are working with their planning horizon in the next 2 years, or?
I think so. There's a generic reason, which we can argue about, which is you need to keep yourself agile, limber, whatever the right word is, because GPTs seem to be the dominant thing right now, but maybe not. It's just very early. And so you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket when things like this are happening. So to me, that's the biggest message. And then the second big message, which could affect, certainly if I was in that position, if you're doing anything with time series data, then you want to pay attention here. Yes, because this could, you at least want to be aware of it and start planning around it. And I think they'll be out certainly with commercial products pretty quickly.
I'd love to.
Well, and I have to agree with that, with the idea of, the market is changing so fast. It's important for leaders to be aware of that. To know that, hey, the investment you're making today, tomorrow might be the wrong company. So to stay nimble, don't make big 3-year contracts at this point, hold off, do little by little, because we just don't know what new stuff is brewing. And like Tim says, I mean, I that's what I found most interesting of this article was, speed and all of that, of course, and all different industries. But the fact that, wow, there's still new stuff that is revolutionizing what is being done. And it's like every day we meet and we talk, and here's another new company. So as a leader making plans for budgets, like you have to be very careful in overcommitting with one single vendor.
I just have one comment on this. So this also is not new. They've been researching this for a couple of years.
Right.
And for me, what strikes me is the less computational time and that kind of thing. So again, I mean, some might have just heard about this, but this isn't new by any means. So I think this is at least important, because now we're hearing about it again and again, that whole compute time, because these models are just going to get enormous. So I think that's something just to think about. But I think that also puts me down from essential for a lot of the reasons we've discussed. But I think it's going to be hard to convince me out of at least important on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Adam, you were trying to get in?
Yeah, Paul, thanks. I just wanted to expand on the point about having to stay agile. And more, almost daily, I'm getting this reinforced message now about not locking in at an enterprise level to any one tool, vendor, or solution. Because we're using Copilot, M365 Copilot at work. And I think what you need to be asking is if something is wins work, meaning, it's words, images, numbers, or sounds, this is the place where one of these tools can really add value. What's the best tool for this use case? I had a colleague, she had a list of 10 bullet points, and she just wanted to make a PowerPoint. And she was like, M365 can't do it. And it took me 3 hours by hand to copy all this stuff over. And I was like, oh, well, what about gamma.app? There's an online site, you just paste in the 10 bullets. And so she was like, oh, but if we're using Copilot, we should be using Copilot to make sure we get our value out of it. And I'm like, if the ROI is justified for a use case, everything else is gravy. Go find the right tool for the job. Don't worry about using the tool you already have and whether or not it's going to work. So I think I'd say this is important as well, not essential, but it does point to how quickly things are continuing to change.
All right. So it sounds like it's important. So the essential, important. Ankaj, are you back, or should I keep running?
Can you hear me, Paul?
I can now, yes.
Yeah, now, yes.
Okay. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, so we did, Ankaj, thanks for coming back, and thanks for patience with all the cooks in the kitchen. We did the Gemini one from Google and the Liquid AI one. And while he's setting up, I know a number of us were at the MIT event on this past June, where there were 1,000 people and they were going through, and Daniela Roos presented Liquid AI, and it was one of the more impressive and popular.
Amazing. Yeah. We've really had a Roger Bannister moment, shortly after he broke the 4-minute mile, right? There was all kinds of people breaking the 4-minute mile. And I think ChatGPT 3.5 was our Roger Bannister moment.
Yep.
Well stated, John.
Very much like, if you want an oldie but goodie, you can read Arthur Kessler's book, The Act of Creation. And he talks about this idea that there are moments in time when things break open, and then all of a sudden everybody believes they can do it just because somebody did it.
Let's keep driving. So this one, is this the third article, I believe? Yeah. Go. Want to kick us off, Ankaj?
Yep. So Google has announced a new TPU V5P, and it is saying that it's the most powerful AI accelerator yet from Google.
Julio, what just important or not?
I mean, I think it's important. I think computation is in short supply, so having these available is important to know. I don't know that there's much to do about it though, or how it actually affects plans.
Is this another the hardware just keeps getting better story?
Yeah,
It is. It is. It's the only the way you could, I would sort of see this as between optional and important. The important side of it is that this can give you a little bit more confidence maybe in thinking about something different than NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Well, what I don't know from this article is, does it change the speed with which somebody can apply a model? Because, Paul, you and I were just talking about a $20 billion hedge fund yesterday, and they are waiting in line for ChatGPT access, right? And so if this changes availability, I think that makes it more important.
It certainly does. But right now, you would have to switch to Google hardware to do it. Right now, they may. I'm not sure OpenAI would go there. We'll see.
Yeah, that's interesting. This is a different way we looked at it. We've talked about not getting locked into a large language model, but there's also the next level down, which is multiple vendors for simple capacity.
That's right. That's right. Hardware is the biggest lock-in right now. NVIDIA has a complete hammer lock on the market right now.
Yeah. So I put it to important because of that, but I'm on the fence.
Amanda, do you have strong views?
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the important camp as well, because I think if anything, it's going to cause some to think about a switch. But again, I don't know if that's going to happen overnight. I think that's something that there's going to be discussions, but I think it's another selling point for them to, hey, we're here, think about us. And now with the Gemini launch and everything. So that's just my thoughts.
Great. I'm just sensitive time. Let's go important. What's the next one? Ankash, please.
Yeah. The next one is from McDonald's. So McDonald's will be using a Google AI chatbot at their drive-thrus. The chatbot will be called Ask Pickles.
Tanya, you had some great insight on this one. Can you?
I love this one. Yeah, Tim. I mean, I have kids, right? And so the first thing that came to mind was McDonald's can turn really into a drive-through Disney. If we combine this with the other story that we were talking about, recreating voices of famous people, well, they could combine, the voice of Princess Leia or, the Disney princesses. You drive through and they're taking your order and just make it a whole experience. Not to talk about what this article is saying, the amount of data they can now take from us, right? They'll know I'm a mom of two, that my kids like, this and that I come after sports. They'll have all of that data to then, even target better my orders. So I just find this, I find this fascinating what they can do, moving forward, combining the voice side, the chatbots like they're talking, and the end user experience.
Yeah,
go ahead, John.
Yeah, to me, it's essential for the reason that, look, here's an organization that is the most operationally intensive organization, with the possible exception of certain parts of the military in the world, and they're putting it on the front line, both for the customer and for the associates. Which,
right.
if you don't think this stuff is going to change customer interaction and knowledge management, wake up.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a reinforcement too of what we've been saying for a long time. Their internal app for the associates is basically dealing with all their problems and manuals and things, exactly the kind of application that is really leveraged by large language models. And I have worked in this back office world before, a long time ago, and it is a real problem because turnover, you have young people, you have huge turnover, you have complex, hot, dangerous equipment. And the ability to have a chatbot that can say, we have a problem with a fryolator or something else, how do we work with it? Deployed by the biggest company in the world in this market is a real indication.
Tim, to add to that, McDonald's announced earlier this week they're going to open 10,000 additional stores.
Yeah, I mean, that's to John's point.
So
this is a major operational company. This is not just like a tiny little back office thing.
And I think, Tim, to that, they've certainly been trying to take labor out, obviously, for decades, but this is order of magnitude transforming the ordering experience that I
Right.
think we haven't seen.
That's the
yet.
front office
Yeah.
part. Right.
It's both sides, exactly. That's what's so interesting, because most of the news that we're talking about is how to improve operations, how to cut costs, how to automate. But this is front and center to the customer, improving the customer experience. And they're taking a risk, right? Because we don't know how this is gonna work out. But I think it's gonna be transformative if they're the first drive-through to do this.
Adam, are you a McDonald's eater? Big Mac, McFries? Nope.
Not really.
If you know the way they do this analysis, the other thing that they've proven to themselves down to the nuts, the screws, that this is operationally efficient, because ordering is such a central part of the profitability of one of these franchises. They would not mess with that if they didn't think it was really going to work.
I just
But I will
had
say
one comment too, from almost like a partnership or some kind of perspective, I guess, is there's other articles out there that came out at the same time with McDonald's and Google in the title everywhere. Google, Google, Google. And I think this has something to do with another announcement from, today, yesterday kind of thing. So I think there's also a push here to say, hey, we're using Google, we're McDonald's. So I think this also, I could be wrong, but that's ringing a bell in my head, just to throw that out there.
Well, let's keep driving. Sounds like essential. What's the next one, Akash, please?
The next one is from Calm, the sleep and meditation app. So you can now listen to AI generated bedtime stories from Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah,
So what came to mind when and I know we chatted about this yesterday, but what came to mind was how scary this can be, right? Earlier in the year, I had heard of a company, and I think it's now available, this idea of, taking the photos, the voices, the everything of a person that has passed away that you're not yet ready to let go. And you can talk to that person, and they create a digital twin on that. And I don't know, it was like, $10,000 to create that person from. So there's a lot of power with the recreating your voice and your presence, and bringing you from the dead back to life today. This is a nice aspect of that, of using the technology. I don't know about the mental side, the psychological side of doing it for a loved one, and bringing that person back. I have conflict with this technology. And then you have the whole safety. What if someone recreates the voice of my husband and I think my husband is in trouble and not? There's so many sides to this. I don't know, how do we protect ourselves? It's a beautiful, beautiful option to have Jimmy Stewart read to us, but there's a lot to consider in the back end.
So what would you rate it, Tanya?
Important, essential.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of stuff in here, deep fakes and all that, but also, again, this is also, we tend to do the old with new technologies before we figure out what they're really unique for. So this is a kind of an old idea. This is just like remastering an old master's work on Spotify or something like that. So a new album by Jimi Hendrix or somebody like that turns out, or they just came out with a new Beatles thing a couple of weeks ago, right? So it's kind of that kind of thing to me, but it's a qualitatively different thing when you can really imitate the person to the point where you can listen to a bedtime story and it sounds enough like them.
Tim, are you on essential in this?
At least important, if not essential. Yeah. And again,
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Luda,
may I throw a monkey wrench into this?
Please.
And say
that's the only kind of wrenches we like, monkey ones.
So yeah, totally. It's very fascinating, and it has a lot of angles, like what Tanya said, what Tim said. So absolutely, technologically, it's interesting. Absolutely, for an executive.
Well, I think the executive argument, you're right, and so we could argue it's really not that important day to day.
Option.
Again, say that again.
It's optional in my view. I'd like to maybe know about it, but for me, importance of it is in handling the the imaging, the video data, but there's a lot of other options, right? So, and this technology is a part of my consideration, but I really, if I am struggling with what projects to take to add value to my bottom line or revenue alternative, right? This would not be important.
Ludus, is this combined though with the model McDonald's one where we're talking about radically cost-effective personalization for the user interface? When I go to McDonald's, I got a Princess Leia or Darth Vader take my order. When I go to sleep, I can have Jimmy Stewart read me the thing, or
Yeah, for retail, futuristic, yes. As a future trend, yes. But for a executive of an enterprise right now, not retail, I would say it's very optional.
Let me make the case for any brand. Is my audio okay now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any brand, it's super important. You know, there's been research, deep brain research on fMRI, reactions to branded stuff, and your pleasure centers when you're drinking Coca-Cola branded versus Coca-Cola unbranded, the pleasure centers of the brain actually light up more with a branded drink. So I think by taking these means, you're doing some very, very profound mixing of latent desires that have been built in the minds of consumers, and it's both scary and powerful. So I would, the fact that you can slice and dice any of these dimensions and then you can model them, and if you want to do the neuroscience, actually see how it affects brain activity. I think any strong brand or any brand should be interested in this combo.
Right, B2C, yes.
Yes, B2C.
B2B, no. So if it's qualified as a B2C, where you're working with a consumer and like your reasoning, yes.
So
And
that's
this is futuristic.
of companies, though, those companies the executives in B2C companies should certainly be interested. And I think the other thing that Tanya said that gets my attention is the awareness of problems. Okay, that you want to be aware that this is good and this is bad. So for branding purposes, this can be fantastic. It can also be a brand injury if Jimmy Stewart says something untoward about you, right? Or if there are deep fakes, as Tanya was saying, this is already happening where they're taking voices that they can clone even from phone messages or simple, quick spam calls where they record your voice and they can regenerate your voice, send it to a relative, say, help, I'm in trouble, I need $10,000. That is already happening.
Yeah.
So let's, in spirit of time, let's go with the essential. There's a lot of good energy on that. I did want to acknowledge John V, who's been listening to us live. Thanks, John, for your comments. John's acknowledging as well the hacking ability. So we've got all this personalization going out there for comm apps and McDonald's drive-through, but that also is making it potentially more easier to unethically use this data or spoof it, as Tim was talking about. So John, thanks for your comments. Everyone, thanks for another good review. The news keeps stopping. I know we currently are just doing Monday through Friday, Bruce. Hopefully we don't have to do Saturday and Sunday, but another good discussion today. Thanks, everyone.